Hi, I'm Karla Schafer, designer for Auntie's Beads, and I'll be demonstrating how to make an embellished ladder stitch bracelet. The products I'm using in this video will be an 8/0 seed bead for the base and 4 different colors of an 11/0 seed bead. I'm also going to be using fire line, an English or a big eye needle, and you will also need a nipper tool and a toggle clasp. The first thing you're going to need to do is we're going to be working with a lot of this fire line, so about 4 yards, and then just run it back through your needle, double it as much as you possibly can work with so you don't have this really enormous amount to work with. First thing we're going to do is work on the base of our bracelet, which is going to be a 3 8/0 seed bead width ladder stitch. So I'm going to string on to begin with 6 seed beads, and I'm going to leave a good amount of tail from 8 to 10 inches. And now that I've got the 6 strung, what I'm going to do is run my needle back through the first 3 that we put on. And this will create a loop of the seed beads. And then I'm going to run my needle back through the second set of 3 that we put on. Then I'm going to tighten up, and then we're going to work from this first little square that we have 3 8/0s at a time until you reach the desired length. And for a good 7.5 inch bracelet, I found that 48 rows was probably optimal length by the time you add the clasp onto it. So 48 rows of this ladder stitch, and again we're just going to work this through. And if you want it longer, then I'd start with the 48 and then check it and add as you need. Or shorter, you may want to subtract some. You can see we're starting to get a little chain here of the ladder stitch. And once we do the base, then we'll add half of the clasp, and then we'll start the embellishment. And you do it all with 1 thread. That's why it's so long, so we don't have to tie in. Now that I've got 48 rows of my ladder stitch here, now we're going to add the clasp to the end. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make a couple of passes through these last 2 rows just to kind of reinforce this a little bit, because the clasp tends to pull on these. So I'm just going to make a couple of passes through here and kind of loop it. And then I'm going to come out the top. And what we're going to do is I have put my colors A, B, C, and D. So we're going to just work with the A first, and we're going to pick up 2A. This is 11/0 seed beads. And 1/8. And then 3 of the A's. Then I'm going to take half of our clasp. I like just working with the loop part of the toggle first. So we're going to string that on. And then we're going to pick up 3 more A 11/0s. I'm going to bring it all back down. And then I'm going to run my needle through this 8/0. and then add 2 more A's. Now, what we're going to do now is come around and go back through this top row. This is how we add our clasp. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to reinforce this, and we're going to run it back through just a couple of times, and then we'll start our embellishment. Okay, now we've got our clasp attached, and we can start working on our embellishment. Now that we've got the clasp attached and we are ready to start our embellishment, and again, we're just going to move in the order A, B, C, and D here. So I've just laid out my seed beads in that order. And the first thing I'm going to do is pick up 5 of the A color, and we're going to go through our middle bead here. So I'm going to skip this row that I'm coming out of, and skip the second one and go through the third. Once this gets started, it's real easy to see where you're supposed to go. But we're going to run our needle through that center bead. And then I'm going to pick up another 5 of the color A. And I'm going to flip my work over, and I'm going to run my needle through this first row where we first came out. And then I'm going to drop down to the second row and run my needle back through. And this is where we're going to start the second row of embellishment. And working with all this thread, sometimes it gets a little knotted, so just be careful. Okay, then I'll flip it back over and I'll show you how it looks here. It starts to look somewhat like a braid. So now we're going to go to the B color. And again, I'm going to string 5. And so I'm not going to use this row that we're coming out of already, but I'm going to go to the next one. Sometimes you just kind of have to maneuver them around. There we go. I got it upside down. How about that? Actually, I went through the wrong direction. Sorry about that. Let me back that out. Wow, I was looking funny. Okay. Go back through the wrong direction. And then pick up another 5 of the color A, letter B, color B. And again, I'm going to flip it over to the back so I can see what I'm doing. Run it through that. And then drop down and run it through this next row. And now we're ready for the third color, which would be the color C. And again, I'm going to skip this row and go down to the next one, run it through the middle. And this is all you do for the length of the bracelet. Flip it back over, and we're going to go for our last color, which was the color D. Now you can see what it looks like when we've got all 5 of our colors, and then we're just going to repeat the pattern, starting off with the A and working our way back through. Now that we've got the embellishment for most of the bracelet done here, I've got one more row that I need to add of my color A. So I'm going to pick up 5 11-0 seed beads, and I'm going to run it through the middle bead here in the top. Now since this is the last row, you might want to kind of hang on to your tail and run it through the middle so that you don't lose this row when we tighten it here. And then I'm going to pick up another 5 of the color A, and I'm going to run it back through just like we've done through the whole bracelet, and then run it through this second one. And just as I did when I added the loop to the other end, I'm going to go ahead and reinforce this top row because we are done embellishing, and I'm going to run my needle through here a couple of times through the first and second row so we don't lose it. Tighten it up. Now you can see that we've got. And then we're going to be ready, I'm going to run it through one more time, to add the bar to our clasp. So again, we're going to do it just as we did with the bottom, with the loop rather, the first part, is we're going to pick up 2 11-0s of the color A, and 1 8-0, and then 3 color A. Now we're going to take the bar part of our toggle I'm going to pick up 3 more color A, and run back through the 8, and then 2 more color A, and back across the top row, and tighten everything up. I'm going to run it through my bottom row here, second row, back up, and then reinforce this loop as we did before. And then we're going to tie off the work. This is the only time we'll have to knot, is we're going to run this working thread through the work and then tie some knots, half hitch knots. And then we're going to rethread the tail. We're going to put the tail thread back on our needle and run it through and half hitch knot it as well, and then your bracelet will be complete. Now I'm going to run it through a couple of rows here. Keep that tail out. Then I'm going to knot. So to do a half hitch knot, just pick up the thread, your needle up underneath the thread. Create a loop, run your needle through the loop. Then I'm going to run it back through those beads and knot again. And then trim this. And as I said, simply restring your tail and run it back through the work and make a couple of knots, and then you've completed your bracelet.